as a Black female. Someone has already come in with their biases and don't want to listen to anything I have to say. So that's been some challenges. The challenge of being a single mom, and knowing that the chaplain corps is seen as this religious symbol. Well, how is it that, she's a chaplain and she doesn't have a husband? Who can explain this? I can explain it. So people are already coming in with their preconceived notions.
That is, you've hit on so many things in there, talking about challenges. Like those are all so huge and all like really deserve a space for conversation that I feel like I want to have with you. And I basically what I'm saying is I'm kind of gonna, as I move on, I just want you to know that everything you just said I'm recognizing is huge, and I don't want it to feel like I'm like glossing through that.
Yeah.
So I just, in the sake of kind of knowing about these things, that each one of those sort of require like a larger element in the story.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you saying that. So I'm kind of gonna pass it to you a little bit, because I'm seeing there were like some of these bigger back and forths about like kind of specific
but I
lines.
think that if you just kind of ignore like the quotations and focus on just the questions, that might be easier. It looks complicated. It's not.
The Colby's questions?
Yeah, and Ben had a few, Colby had a few, and then he just sent another one at the bottom there.
Below. Sorry, can you just point this out?
Yeah, totally. Then I was hoping to get something like this, a bit more specific about actual numbers and sort of what. So maybe we can get something there. Hey, join in.
Hey, awesome. Good to see you.
Oh yeah, you know this guy.
Guys, there wasn't really any question from me. It was just echoing Colby's question.
Got it.
You won't go find one from me. It was really just, how often is counselling encouraging sailors to feel the things they're struggling with? And then Colby has kind of left one more note at the very end. If there's a way to kind of incorporate that into a question, great. I think you probably have it anyway, but yeah, just those final two things, and I think we'll be pretty good to go.
Awesome. Thank you. So, I'm gonna ask. Well, I asked these two. Do you want to kind of just try to formulate this into a question? Awesome. So. I'm gonna kind of say this verbatim and then kind of describe. The question is, how often is counseling encouraging sailors to feel the things they're struggling with? Which I think what I'm hearing from that is like, how often are you trying to do you think that you're able to speak to that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I can't like totally rephrase.
As a chaplain in most of my counseling sessions, when sailors come and speak on anything that they're struggling with, one is to first, accept it, right? Because a lot of times people don't want to come to terms with that very thing that's nagging them. So it is to get them to accept it and work towards a plan of addressing it. Right now in COVID, some of the problems that we've seen some sailors deal with is domestic violence, money mismanagement. And so what's the root of that issue? Like, what are you angry about? What are you frustrated about? Is there something going on in your workspace that requires more attention? If so, then how would you like for me to intervene? Because when sailors do come to me, I am the chaplain that will always say, now that you've said all this, how would you like for me to respond? Because I can never make an assumption that they want me to do anything about it. It's a matter of them giving me permission to even act. The more recent situation is I have a sailor that's pregnant. And it's nothing wrong with that. And so when she shared with me, the content of what she's struggling with, I said, now, how do you want me to proceed with this information? Well, she simply wanted me to just make sure that the commanding officer was aware of her pregnancy. And so, as sometimes we just advocate, or sometimes we're their mouthpiece. Sailors are so junior and they feel that they can't speak to the higher up. So I'm just, as a chaplain, I'm a mouthpiece for them.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And there's something that you sort of touched on in the very beginning of that I just want to have you almost like reaffirm or just dive a little deeper into, which is that in terms of growing as an individual, it is necessary to recognize and deal with negativity, even if our first impulse as human beings is to shy away from that.
So as chaplains, we should be a champion all the time for not just professional growth, but personal growth. I know in a world that's about crunching numbers and meeting demands, we want people to develop personally. And so the biggest step to personal development is first recognizing that there's an issue, and two, developing your plan to address that issue. If I create a plan for a sailor who has an issue managing money and they don't have a buy-in, then they're going to walk away from my office still with that issue. So it's allowing them to have that buy-in and feel like they have a voice. I mean, it's really their life, so they have to take ownership of some of it.
Yeah, I'm also like, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking, sorry, did that just come on?
Just sort of buzzing.
Yeah.
I think it's quiet.
Can you hear, I'd be shocked if you can hear that in either of those. Especially the trail.
Maybe, yeah. Anyway, the idea of sort of like, how often do you bring your own experiences into these different, into like these different sessions, as somebody who has like dealt with a lot of your own sets of challenges? Like, I imagine that can be really useful in like relating to somebody and like helping them get through things.
As a chaplain who's serving young men and women from all walks of life, I pride myself on being a transparent chaplain, meaning that more times than often, when someone sits in my chair, I can relate to the story in which they're sharing. And I will say there was once a time where I encountered XYZ, having a sick kid and not being able to make it to work, as an example, and feeling bad for not being present. Encouraging the sailors that you have to find that balance within your own emotions. Your kids are going to be sick and you just have to face it. Or leaving home or leaving a dysfunctional family. Hey, my mom wasn't there either. And here's how I got through this. I'm not saying I'm better, but I've learned to cope better as a result.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, right, almost like a direct relation of, letting them know that like you've been there too.
Yeah.
And I guess sort of along that line, actually, another one of these questions is like, how do you think that your upbringing has sort of like uniquely equipped you to do this job?
My upbringing, from my grandparents, from watching my mom, has played a major role in how I simply treat people. And that has equipped me for not just being a chaplain, but being a naval officer. Because I think a lot of times people see me as chaplain and forget that I'm still a naval officer. And I pride myself on dignity and respect. I was taught that growing up. So it plays out every day in my work life.
Yeah, I can completely imagine. Those are definitely